Hey everybody, it's been a while since I did a video, so I thought I'd do another one here. You have to excuse me, my holder broke on my truck here to where I hold my phone in most of the time, so, but one thing that I wanted to talk about was this, something that I started thinking about here a couple weeks ago, and it really came to light when we had a speaker at the church called, his name was Ray Hughes. I really like that guy. The guy tells stories like nobody I ever knew before, and they're so powerful, and he just sits there and tells stories. It's so interesting, and it talks about, stories about his own life, and he goes back into history and just has these really interesting stories, but has such a way of bringing out so much truth in all of it, just by sitting there telling stories. It's just an awesome thing. And then he also breaks out his guitar and stuff and sings a little bit and everything. But but one of the things that he was talking about was that you back in 2 Samuel in the Old Testament, where the Israelites were bringing the Ark of the Covenant back from, I think it was the Philistines. The Philistines, I think, had captured the Ark of the Covenant, and now the children of Israel were bringing it back. And it says on there that they were moving it on a cart with oxen. And the thing that strikes me about that is that when they were bringing that back, it said that the ox that were pulling the cart stumbled, and there was a man, I guess, walking alongside of it, and he put his hand out to stabilize the Ark of the Covenant. And when he did that, it said that God killed him. I mean, I would say that if the thing came down, it probably crushed him. But nonetheless, let's use it, let's just say that somehow the man was killed when he tried to stabilize the Ark of the Covenant. The part that I find very interesting about that is that the Ark of the Covenant always had to be moved by people. It had to be carried on the shoulders of mankind, essentially. And in the Ark of the Covenant, that was the presence of God, and the presence of God always had to be moved through people, by people, and that is still true today. And what the cart and the oxen would symbolize to me would be something man-made, that they were trying to move the presence of God. They were trying to get God to move and trying to bring in a good thing, but they were trying to do it on man-made structures. And that's where they messed up, is because God can't move, or isn't going to move for long. He's not going to be satisfied on man-made constructs. Like, he's not, he wants to be in people, on people, and that's how he wants to be moved. And he doesn't want to be moved by man-made systems in any way, shape, or form, in whether that would be in the church, like through doctrines, man-made doctrines, or man-made theology. He doesn't want to be moved on the shoulders of government or anything of that sort. Like, he doesn't want it to be. He doesn't want to be moved by nationalism either. Like, you can't use a national agenda to move God. You can't use your church's fundamentalists, like they're the fundamentalism, the theology, all of those types of things. You can't use that to move God. You can't move God with any kind of a system. Like God does not fall in boxes. He does not fall into systems. And I think the thing that is so powerful to me, and that I think essentially happened to me, something that I had to go through in my own walk, is that I was at that point where I had God on these different structures and ideas. I had ideas of who God was. I had theologies to back it up. I had scriptures to back it up. No matter what I had to say that those scriptures meant, whatever. I had theology and everything to say who God was, and I was trying to have God move in my life, and I was trying to get God to move elsewhere on man-made systems, and this stuff started rocking, okay? These ox started stumbling, or the cart started to rock. And I was standing there, and I was trying to hold it up. I was trying to hold that ark up and trying to hold the presence of God up because I wanted it to stay the same way. The pressure got so great that I either had to get out of the way and let it fall, or I had to be crushed by it. And I was on the verge of being crushed because I was on the verge of walking away from everything, because the heaviness and everything just was not making any sense anymore. And so I believe that this principle can be used both personally. It can be used in the church, even in your local church, or it can be used in the church nationwide or globally. And it can also be applied even to your nation, the whole nation, and the whole world. So it goes from a very small scale up to an extremely large scale as well. That I think what is happening right now, there is a bunch of things that are going on right now that everybody, if you're not hiding under a rock, you can see that there is some serious stuff going on right now in mankind. I mean, with everything going on around the globe, with things happening in the United States and in the church community, it is very obvious that things are being shaken up right now. And I believe that people are trying to hold up. They're underneath this thing, trying to hold up this old way of doing things, this man-made way of doing things, a man-made way of trying to move God and trying to get God to move, God is being held up by man-made structures. He's not being held up by man. Okay, and so what's going on is people are trying to hold up these man-made structures and trying to stabilize everything right now. They're trying to say, oh, this isn't good. They're trying to shut the mouths of a lot of people who are speaking out. So they're trying to smooth over and trying to stabilize everything right now. And my whole thing is, if people choose to stay there, and they choose to stay there and try to hold up this old system of doing things, this old way of doing things, they're going to get crushed by it. They're going to either have to because God's coming down, okay? God is going to come off of those man-made structures one way or the other, and you can choose to stand there and be crushed by it. Now, I'm not talking about a physical crush, like you're physically going to die, but it's going to be painful. If you choose to stay there, your theology, your belief system, and everything is going to become crushed. And you're going to have a very hard time dealing with it. Or you can choose to get out of the way. And that's not easy either. But you can choose to get out of the way and let it come down. And realize that God is trying to do something different. He's trying to do something much bigger than what we know, what we can conceive, because if as long as he remains inside and on top of these man-made structures, and as long as he remains in a church that is run more like a business than the church is actually meant to be. Like, most churches now are run like businesses. That's all they are. They're businesses. The leaders in there are essentially entrepreneurs, and they're trying to and they try to run their church like a business. They look at how much money they have coming in versus how much money they have going out. What is the latest big screen TV we can buy for the youth room? All of those different kinds of things that it's actually really, really sickening on how things are being done now. But those things are going to come crashing down, okay? And if you choose to stay there and try to hold this up, you're going to get crushed. Or you can move out of the way and let it come crashing down, and then let God rebuild it, okay? But this time God needs to rebuild it, not mankind, okay? Man does not need to sit there and try to come up with another system and a bunch of different systems on how to get God to move on. We don't need to put him, because when you go in and you start saying things, that it's by faith, through grace, by grace through faith that you have been saved. And when you go in there and you throw the "your" in there, it's by your faith. When you start saying that, it's not said that it doesn't say your faith. But when you start throwing with just that one little word, of putting that one little word into that scripture, puts God on a man-made construct, and you're just setting yourself up to get crushed again, because it eventually is going to shake, and he's going to come off of that thing, because you, even by doing something that small of adding to the gospel, and that's also taking away from the gospel, that's both adding in words but taking away from the power of the gospel, just by putting that one little word in there that does not belong there, just that one little shift totally changes the whole message, and it puts God back on a cart being pulled by ox. And it's only going to be a matter of time until it's all going to come crashing down again. And I see so many people trying to do the same old thing that have always been done. They're sitting there trying to, and I'm not speaking out against anybody, I'm not speaking out against any church, because this has been going on for ever since I've been going to church. I have heard the same things, and from one church to the next, it's always the same thing. It's always the same language. They might have different styles of preaching and teaching, all of that kind of stuff, but the common message from you can almost paint this with a broad brush in a lot of evangelical churches in the United States, that revival is coming. Revival is almost here. We're sitting right on the edge of a breakthrough, and it's just right around the corner of a big move of God. Like, those are main things that are being taught, and it's always right on the edge. We're right on the edge. It's right around the corner. It's right here. And the thing about it is you need to let that go. Okay, you need to let that go. You actually need to let the whole revival thing go. You just need to let it go, because that kind of language and always keeping people in suspense is actually killing the church. There are so many people walking away from the church, both globally and locally, that people are just saying, you know what, I've had it. This is the same language. I've been hearing it for the past 10, 20, 30 years, and it's always the same thing. And yeah, sure, every now and then you have a little flash in the pan, or a little bottle rocket go off, or you see this cool little thing, goes up, pop, fizz, and it's done. Over, say, yeah, but that lasted for a whole year. And it's like, that's a year. Like, that's very tiny. That's just a little bottle rocket going off. Like, that, It had no substance. And once again, throughout history, I know there have been awesome things that have happened and moves that were very powerful, that have changed and altered the direction of Christianity, but you also have to look at where it's at. What did it really do? It brought us to where we are now, because we can talk about the greatest generation, and they were awesome. There were some great things about it, but it also brought society to where we are now. So you have to wonder, okay, well, do we want the same thing to happen that happened in Azusa Street? Do we want the same thing to happen that happened in the tent meetings? Do we want the same thing to happen that happened in Brownsville or in Toronto? And my answer to that is a flat out blatant no. You don't want that. You don't want that again, because that's just the same old thing. And God will maybe give that if that's all we can accept. But I don't think that's what he wants to do. I don't think God wants a revival. Because then when you say revival and it starts, you're already looking to see how long you can carry it before it ends. The thing with the whole revival language is that you know that it's only going to be for a period of time. And then it's going to be over again. You know, that you're going to have these meetings for a month, and, you know, maybe something like Toronto can happen where it will go on for even a couple years. But essentially the end will come with that revival, and then everybody's just going to be, and, you know, good things come out of it. Yeah, absolutely. But my whole thing about it is just start living into it. You don't need a revival. If you're sitting around waiting on a revival, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. If you're waiting on a revival, then I'm sorry, but chances are you're not going to get it. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen the way people think it's going to, and I don't even think it's going to be a revival. You might be able to call it that, maybe, but I think people are wasting their time. I think they're giving people false hope. I think they're keeping people in suspense for no reason. I think it's doing great damage to people. Because now when I start hearing the whole revival talk, I hate to say it, but I roll my eyes and I'm just like, not again. Like, I'm tired of hearing it, the thoughts, and I hate it. I know this is going to hurt some people's feelings maybe, but I roll my eyes and say, well, I'll believe that when I see it. Because that's been the narrative ever since I've been going to church. Everybody's just holding out for that revival, and it's always right around the corner. It's been that way ever since I've been a kid. Ever since I was just a little child. That's always how it's been. And it's not right. People need to stop. And even that revival is a man-made construct. And if you continue to try to put God into that revival box, it's going to come crashing down. And you can sit there and hold out for a revival, and you can sit there and try to hold it up and prop it up, or you can get out of the way, because once that revival doesn't come, if you sit there and you're putting all of your money on getting that revival, you're putting all of your money on it, to where if you don't get that revival, you just don't know what you're going to do, because you need that refreshment, you need that drink of water, and then it doesn't come, you're going to be crushed. It's absolutely going to crush you. You're going to start second-guessing God. You're going to second-guess everything. And there's a possibility that your theology and your faith is going to get totally crushed if you stay there. So people, I think you need to let go of that stuff. You need to let go of that traditional things. And you need to get out of the way, and you need to let it come crashing down. And it might be a little bit messy for a while, but that's all right. God has no problem rebuilding things if we just actually let him do what he wants to do and the way he intended to do them from the beginning. So you can either get hurt by it, or you can embrace it and have fun and go along for the ride. And it's kind of like a scary roller coaster, but you know what? It's fun. So that's my advice to everybody. And I hope somebody can take something from that. Bye.